Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this moment, and welcome to these words that I shall share. The title of today's episode is The Shadows of Time. And this lecture is in some sense on what I find to be the purpose of a changing being. First off, I gotta say, I don't believe words can touch the ultimate. I don't believe words are enough to show us truth. Because we are creatures that have the extension of a realm of conscious experience. I chose this picture, and the reason I called it The Shadows of Time, like this episode, is because I saw that time leaves a shadow. Do you see? It was from the shadow, from the sundial, that time came to origination. That means just a sort of reference to a change in movement. Plato has a very interesting quote. He says, time is the moving image of eternity. And if time is the moving image of eternity, then what is the shadow of time? It is the shadow of the movement of eternity. I have constantly been wondering about one's state of existence, let's say. I have wondered about my state of existence. And it has brought me to moments where I have at times avoided the illusions that were self-imposed. I imposed upon myself certain viewpoints because I couldn't confront certain situations. This is something that changed in me. You know, when I was younger, I was kind of hiding from society and the real world. And I was hiding in a way where even if I was social or something, it wouldn't be me. It was like I was possessed by the idea of myself that I wanted to be present. So you see, throughout time and through the waves of maturity that life throws at you, you begin realizing that we are not on a stage, even though it's a very mystical thing that, like, for example, in ancient Vedic knowledge, there was the concept of Leela, which meant a play, a kind of like what we call like reality is just a play of elements. You know, at the same time, it's, how can I tell you, it's just a game. Do you see? Ancient traditions, it's like the idea of the simulation is nothing new. You know, Elon Musk says there's 1/1000th of a chance we're in a simulation, and the whole world goes crazy. Oh my God, somebody has said this. But when you go look at ancient cultures, they did acknowledge this reality as a simulation simply because they acknowledged greater dimensions. They acknowledged a sort of a mountaintop where God stood and man could not reach. And in some sense, in ancient Vedic culture, and as the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita kind of suggests that this humanity with abstraction. You see, scientists look at an Indian guy who's worshipping a god, you know, worshipping Vishnu, you know, and, you know, the scientist is like, this is ridiculous, this is shenanigans, this makes no sense why this man is doing it. You know, it's his limited belief, you know. But when one thinks about if there was a sort of idea that there are higher beings, what is more wiser, to reach out or to not? If we know there's a better way, there's a better place, like imagine like you had a better place accessible to live, a better lifestyle, a better totally different way. Let's say you won the lottery or something, you would take that. Right? So we can say that human beings who found themselves frustrated with material reality begin considering the origin of an immaterial universe. They begin wondering how thought is here and how there is a spontaneity and how this life is like a dream because our eyes open up from the pitch black non-existence of sleep. So for me, this life is like a dream, and I receive it playfully But now that I see society as if something has happened, as if there is too unique of a pattern happening on the surface of this planet to be let go, as if this momentum, this thing that all our ancestry contributed to building, is now in our hands. And what are people doing? They have found it much more simpler to live in virtual reality than actual reality. And I suffered from this. I suffered from this because I thought it was easier to avoid the world in this lifetime than to actually confront it. But you realize there's, any time, how can I tell you? Like, I got angry at myself. And this is something where a lot of people are like, what do you mean you got angry at yourself? I got angry at how I lived in the past. And it kind of broke my heart, how I lived in the past and how I am living now. And now I am seeing the many ways I could have lived, the many opportunities. In some sense, these Mr. Within talks are kind of me reaching out to my past self and being like, hey, past self, you messed up there, walk that way, right? But because I've already passed my past self, like I'm right now in this moment, my word is just like a pattern, as if I'm sharing patterns from my experience with others, and your mind receives it based on your experiences. Time is very crucial to study. And so, guys, I'm going to get to the juice of this talk, and I'm not, like, I could poetically dwindle around this idea, but I'm going to share my views, and they might be too intense for you, and I might come across a bit like, too bold in this moment. But this is what I'm going to tell you, guys. This is the story of my life till this moment in regards to all the enlightenment and realization I find that I can sum up, at least in this moment. A creature opens its eyes and it begins to realize that people are calling it a name, and that there is a unique behavior of the world. And so I remember growing up, I remember the state of being before I learned language. I call it pre-thought. I remember that pre-thought state where I wasn't even, if you ask me, are you a child? It's like I hadn't even learned words. I was so young. Like, I think I was like a couple months old, but I retained some conscious memory of it, where it's as if I'm just there. I'm just existing, as if like when a being comes into manifestation, it needs to exist for a while, right? And so the parent keeps it in its warmth and tries to protect the child, until the child can actually function. And we realize we in reality love the functional. We worship the functional, but only if they're also cool in some sense. That's the thing about like the younger generations. You want to give them truth, you got to make it look cool. This is why so many professors are being found to be boring in universities, and people want realness. I can tell you this. My attention took shape. It claimed a name. And as it had access to memories of itself occurring in different ways, began developing a personality. Now, this is where the interesting thing comes. At some point in my life, I reach a point of like problematic existence where I was having too many problems, and I felt everything I would do in life felt wrong. It felt wrong. Everything I felt in that phase of my life, I think I was like I was 18 to 19. I felt I was doing, was wrong. It just came across like as if I shouldn't be. Like, it wasn't even like bad things. It was just like the way I thought about myself was wrong. So the whole time I was feeling wrong, because this is the real thing. A lot of children go into schools and they forget their true nature. They get bogged down into situations of requiring a sort of social acknowledgement, and in doing so, they forget their true creativity, who they are as a being, before any other voice shapes them, before any other voice masks your true nature. You are here first. Seldom this is said. You are the god of your moment. Your attention is its origin. And your presence is beyond your personality. And this is the whole point of these Mr. Within talks, where I am claiming to this mainstream, to this world, that we know nothing. It's not that Jon Snow just knows nothing. You know, the whole world knows nothing. We are a pebble in the middle of emptiness on this rock. These creatures have evolved. They're making sophisticated mouth noises and extracting knowledge and meaning out of it, and constantly, you know, ridiculing and resisting the idea that there are other dimensions to the being. And so we're just this material thing happening in our own illusion of a dream. And that's modern society in 2019, where if you honestly became a scientist, you will realize it's like you never made any discovery as a scientist, because it was atoms moving. There's no purpose, there's no meaning, there's no greater context. People attack the concept of God thinking that it's a context. It is honestly a thinking that it's a concept, it's a context. God is just universal intelligence. That's it. That means there's intelligent stuff happening in the universe at once. All at once. Existence is a cup of coffee being stirred by the unknown with a spoon, you know, made of carbon. I reached a point in my life where I was like, who is looking through my eyes? What the hell does it all mean?